glamorous.
Mum's very independent. She's 89 years old. She said last year, "Oh, I'm a cougar, Matthew." And I was like, I'm surprised she even knew what it was. But her boyfriend's 88. So, you know, maybe that's keeping her young.
Myrtle, come on, here we go.
Farmer and chef Matthew Evans has joined me in my Chef's Challenge. I've invited some of Australia's most loved cooks and chefs to create a recipe that can be whipped up in an aged care home.
I'm joining Maggie Beer's Chef's Challenge with my cottage pie, which has got a mustard cheddar topping, and I'm dedicating that recipe to my mother. I learned to cook at her apron strings, so I'd like to dedicate every recipe I cook to her. My mum is from the UK. She grew up in post-war Britain. There wasn't a great food culture, I guess, in our background, but my mother was really into flavour. And I think that joy of being able to take something simple and honest, to be able to take a potato and say, this can be delicious, this can be amazing. And I think that's what my mother taught me, is that home cooking can be as wondrous as restaurant cooking. There's so much we could do to respect our elders more.
I think one of the things we forget is pleasure, especially in your twilight years. You know, you can look at nourishment, you can look at feeding people, but if you're not getting pleasure, what's the point?
Matt's cottage pie ticks all the boxes. And I hear he says it's better than his mum's original recipe. She better not hear that.
I think it's terrifying to have Maggie Beer cook anything, any recipe that I've written. But if my mum thinks it's up to scratch, then I reckon Maggie will think it's up to scratch. And no offence, Maggie, Mum's opinion matters more.
To make Matt's cottage pie, I'm going to start by heating up a knob of butter to sizzle. I'm going to just add a little bit of olive oil so the butter doesn't burn. And I'm going to put the onions in. Matt wants me to colour them. Now, they take a while to cook.
One of the things that really this benefits from is browning the onion. So cooking the onion as long and slow as possible, and you get this richness, this body, this flavour that just carries on through.
But now he wants me to put the carrots and the celery into the onions and sweat them off a little. Even when I make a mess, I love doing that. It's a very chefy thing.
I wanted to do a cottage pie, which is a really humble dish. It's a peasant dish because it uses ingredients that don't cost a lot, but you can make it utterly delicious and you can do it at scale.
Now, Matt's asked for good quality beef mince. The most important thing is to get this colour in the meat in batches because it lets out such a lot of moisture. A good thing is to actually press it down so it doesn't all clump together.
We're big believers in knowing and trusting what you eat. So for us, that means if you can grow it or know the grower, then you're going to trust what you're putting in your mouth and in the mouths of your family.
I so agree with Matt. I love where the food can take centre stage. So I want to add some more flavour, sprigs of bay and thyme. And a splash of Worcester sauce. Woo!
I've never had any real first-hand experience of the aged care system. Mum, at the age of 89, living alone, for me it gives me peace of mind being able to hear her voice every day. But she is such an amazing person and has a wicked sense of humour.
I'm adding the vegetables back and the stock and let it simmer for about 40 minutes.
She recently had a heart operation. Within 12 hours of coming out of the heart operation, she was telling jokes that made the nurses blush. She said, "How can you tell when you've got an elderly man in your bed?" And the young nurse was like, "Oh, I don't know." And she goes, "Well, it's not hard."
It's been about an hour now, so I'll pour this into a large casserole dish.
That's my 89-year-old mother, a total embarrassment.
I mashed about 1 kilo of potatoes earlier to make the topping, but now I'm going to add, a handful of grated cheese, a couple of handfuls. It's Matt's recipe after all. A tablespoon or two of mustard, grated horseradish, and about 100 grams of butter. Now, I thought I was the most decadent cook in the world, but I think Matt has just taken the cake.
I reckon I got into cooking because of the relationship I have with my mum, seeing food as a way to show love. The kitchen is a place of solace and joy and community.
Now, every cook has to taste. How amazing. I could eat it just like that.
I think the idea that every mouthful counts is really great for us as we age because we eat less. And so the bits that we put in our mouth have to do more.
And then I'll scrape the top with a fork to make lots of peaks and troughs. I'm going to bake this in the oven at around 200 degrees until the pie is lovely and browned and starting to bubble.
There's more knowledge in the local aged care facility here than there is in the state library. And we sometimes forget that. It's just that respect for what they've got, what they've given, and what they still have to give.
Oh, the aroma, the look of this, how golden. I've got to taste. A cook has to taste. So luscious.
You know, when we sit down and we break bread together, we eat together, that's when we build humanity. I love what Maggie's trying to do with this. I love the fact that these are treasured people who are sometimes forgotten in our community that we need to nourish from the inside out. So the more we can look at making stuff delicious as well as nutritious, I think we're going to do better.
Thank you, Matt. This really measures up to the challenge. It's really quite simple, accessible, just tastes so wonderful. Flavour, flavour, flavour. Oh, I just got some horseradish.